Hello, World of Metal. Thank you so much for having me on here today. To answer your first question, the same outcome has been doing pretty well. The response has been extremely positive so far. Going back to the singles that we've been releasing throughout the year, it has been very encouraging to see everyone's responses to each song as it comes out and each accompanying video. So far, it seems to be everyone's favorite record that we've put out so far. The recording process on this record has been pretty standard for us. We do everything in-house. We're a pretty fiercely DIY band, so we record, produce, mix everything in-house. We have a drummer who, lives out of state, but he has his own studio in his home. He records everything on a V-drum kit, and we go back and forth until the songs are just done. We have our own studio. We do everything there. We shoot all our own videos, either in the studio or at locations that we find ourselves. It was a time-consuming process, song by song over a course of the last few years. It was very, very gratifying to finish the record and, look at it in its final form and be very happy with it. We didn't work with anybody else other than a mastering engineer. We don't outsource anything, really. We're pretty much entirely DIY. Our main influences would be bands like Faith No More, Nine Inch Nails, Skinny Puppy, Ministry, Godflesh, Neurosis, even bands like Pink Floyd, Mew, The Doors, and a whole bunch of other stuff. But we're also really influenced by things like, science, true crime, fiction, nonfiction. We're all big readers. So a lot of stuff comes from, from the art of other people who, other artists that we respect very deeply, including filmmakers. We're big movie fans. Directors like Denis Villeneuve, Christopher Nolan, Tarantino, and a host of other, Panos Cosmatos. Inspiration for anything can come from any one of those sources. We try to not wear our influences literally on our sleeves, but we take ideas or we get inspiration for new ideas from a lot of those sources. Especially reading a lot in the last few years, it's been very healthy to maintain an attitude towards reading instead of living on social media all the time, because social media is just a drain of inspiration. So those are our main inspirations. When will it be possible to see us live in Europe? We don't know that at this time. We're barely cracking the surface here in the States. Like I said earlier, the album seems to be doing pretty well for the most part for a band at our level. We just had a big show opening for Stabbing Westward this past weekend, so that was great. And hopefully that kind of snowballs into some other opportunities overseas. We do have a few overseas fans, even some fans in South America, that have expressed interest in us coming out. It just has to, logically, financially make sense for us to be able to do that, because we are a DIY band and a lot of everything comes out of our own pockets. So we hope in the new year that it would be possible. We're going to keep grinding and keep doing our thing, and hopefully this album, develops into a lot more interest overseas. The streaming information that we see online, it seems like there's a lot of people in throughout Europe that really like what we're doing. So hopefully we can make that happen in the new year. Well, first off, thank you for saying that. We really put a lot of time into the lyrics. I put a lot of time into the lyrics as much as the whole band puts into the music. So it really means a lot when we hear someone say that. Is it more important than ever to have something important to say? Absolutely. I think it's always been important, and to us, art that's not really saying anything isn't really worth our time. I enjoy art for entertainment value, but for the most part, we're all the kind of people. All three of us are the kind of people that uh, really are. We're always searching for something deeper in our art, where something where it inspires us and it reminds us why we even make the things that we make. And I think with everything going on in the world, with there's just ongoing crises and war and all this other nonsense that has inspired people for decades. It's important to stay on top of these things as far as like being aware of them, and I think it's important to channel that stuff into your art. I think art is kind of uninteresting unless it's saying something about these things. It doesn't have to necessarily be political, although we do consider ourselves a pretty political band. I do think that being aware of what's going on in the world and funneling that, channeling that into what you're trying to say is crucial. And as so much stuff that is popular these days that kind of, goes around that, I think it is important, for what we're trying to do to stick to the ethos of, having substance in our message. And, getting that across as clearly as possible while also still not, being too on the nose about anything we're saying. We really try to make things as interesting melodically and conceptually as possible. Yeah, I think it's really, really important to have a message in what you're doing these days, because, without that, it just all feels kind of like fluff. But thank you so much for having us. We really appreciate this opportunity to talk to you today. Take care.